So I talked a couple of weeks ago about what the pedals do on a piano, and actually that video was about what the pedals do on a grand piano. Let's talk about what's different on the pedals on an upright piano. First of all, you might remember that the right pedal, when we talked about our grand piano, was the sustain pedal or the damper pedal. And you might also remember that in the action of the piano there are these parts called dampers that are spring-loaded, and they go up against the strings and stop the sound. So remember, when I play a note, the damper lifts from the strings, allowing them to vibrate until I let go of the key, and the damper goes against the strings to stop the sound. That's the same function in an upright as it is in a grand. When I press the right or the damper pedal, or the sustain pedal, it lifts all the dampers off of the strings so that anything that I play will sustain until I let go of the pedal. Like that. Now, the only difference with the dampers in an upright versus a grand is in a grand piano the strings are parallel to the floor, they're horizontal. Of course, in an upright piano they're vertical. In a grand piano, because they're horizontal, the dampers move up and down vertically and rest on the strings when they're not in use. So gravity does most of the work of the dampers in a grand piano. In an upright, because the strings are vertical and so are the dampers are spring-loaded. So there's a lever that damper is on that is spring-loaded, and the spring pushes the damper against the strings when we let go of a key. That's really the only difference between dampers and the damper pedal in an upright versus a grand. The other two pedals, though, are completely different in an upright piano. First of all, let's talk about the what a lot of people refer to as the soft pedal on the left side. You might remember on the grand piano that pedal actually shifts the keyboard and the entire action so that each hammer only plays two of the three strings on each note, which not only results in a little bit softer sound, but it also changes the timbre or the tone quality because the hammers are hitting the strings in a different area of the hammer, so the felt is a different density. Completely different on an upright piano. Basically, they still call this a soft pedal. On the grand, it's called a soft or an una corda pedal. Una corda meaning one string, because the action shifts and only so that it misses one string of each note. In an upright piano, nothing shifts on the keyboard when I play that pedal. The keyboard stays in place, and instead what it does inside the piano is it simply moves this rail so that it pushes the hammers closer to the strings at rest. And as you would expect, with a different amount of distance, that's called blow distance, how far the hammer travels from rest to hitting the string, and with a different amount of blow distance, a smaller blow distance, theoretically is a quieter sound. I'm playing that key with the same, or I'm trying to play with the same force each time. You might hear a little bit of difference in the sound. It might be a little bit quieter with the damper, with the soft pedal depressed, but it's really a pretty inadequate substitute for una corda. Not only is it not very effective in making the sound softer, but of course the hammers are not shifting, and so we don't get any kind of a change in tone quality or timbre on an upright piano with the soft pedal. So that's one difference. Now, the middle pedal on an upright is an interesting animal because it's different on different upright pianos. It depends on what the manufacturer decided to do with it. You might remember on a grand piano, the middle pedal was the sostenuto pedal, which allowed me to, any note that I pushed and then depressed the pedal while I'm still holding the key down, it would sustain that note only and allow me to play short notes. Any notes that I play after that point would be short, but that one note would still sustain. That's a pretty sophisticated mechanism, and the vast majority of upright pianos do not have a sostenuto for the middle pedal. One common use of the middle pedal on an upright piano is what's just called a bass damper pedal. It does the same thing as a sustain or damper pedal, except that you notice that the bass strings, there's a divide here between the treble and the bass. With the middle pedal on this piano, it lifts only the bass dampers, but not the treble dampers. So as a result, anything that I play in the bass will sustain, but the treble will be short until I let go of the pedal. That's kind of again, kind of a cheap substitute, kind of a faux sostenuto, you could say. And there's very little call for that pedal or that effect in any music, so I don't know that anybody ever uses that bass sustain pedal on an upright piano. But that's one of the ways that a left pedal on an upright is used. Now let's talk about different uses of the middle pedal on an upright. Since upright pianos typically don't have sostenuto like the grands do for the middle pedal, they have to do something with that pedal if they're going to put one there. This is probably the most common in more recent pianos, upright pianos, and that is the middle pedal activates what's called a practice mute. You see there's this long rail that goes along the entire width of the piano, and it has a felt curtain on it. And what happens is the middle pedal is designed, you see there's a little notch to the left there, so it's actually designed not to be used during playing off and on like the damper pedal might be, or in a quarter pedal. Instead, to activate the practice mute, you push the middle pedal down and push it to the left, and that locks it down in place. And it has lowered, here I'll do it with so you can see the felt rail. It lowers the curtain of felt to come between the hammers and the strings so that the piano is very, very quiet. Here it is without the mute. And with the mute. So the idea is if you want to play, if you're in an apartment, for example, and you want to play your piano at 1 o'clock in the morning and you don't want to wake up the neighbors, you can play with the practice mute on, and it keeps it quiet. Or for little kids that are taking lessons, if mom and dad are trying to watch TV or something and don't want to be distracted, they can use the practice mute instead. Some older upright pianos only have 2 pedals. They would have the left and the right pedal, and they just leave the middle pedal out. And there are even some older upright pianos that do have a middle pedal, but it's a complete dummy pedal. It's there for show, and it doesn't do anything at all. It's not connected to anything, it's just there. But by far the 2 most common are the 2 that I've shown you today, the bass damper pedal and the practice mute. So there you go. That's the difference between the pedals on an upright piano versus a grand.